Hi, so I'm Grace McCarthy and I'm based in the Marie Curie office on Merrion Square. I work with the National Contact Point, Geraldine Canny, who's she's actually on annual leave at the moment, but we give workshops usually every year to individual fellowship applicants, and they're about 2 hours long. So what I've done is shortened it down, but if you're going to look at any slides, look at the handbook and the slides that Patrick's going to send, because it'll be a bit more fleshed out. But this is just giving you an example of how much work is in it, and what you need to be aware of. So just like I said, that this is just a link to our support, but Patrick will probably send you the same stuff. So we have a link on our website in the IUA, and it gives you the handbook and the recorded webinar that we have, but you can also download the slides if you want them as well. And they are very useful when you're writing the application. So Patrick mentioned part B1 of the application. This is the part that's really reviewed by the evaluator, and the criteria they use is just as follows here. So you just need to be aware that if you don't follow the headings, you're not going to get funded, because that's what the evaluators will look for, to see if you applied everything. Don't change any of the wording, just use what's already there. You can download the template and it's there automatically, so there's no point in changing anything. So what I'm going to do is go through the key ones here, and again, look at the fleshed out slides for more information. So part B1 is the excellence section, and this section is worth 50% of the total marks. There are 4 main headings to this section, which, as you can see there, and as you can see, it's not just about the research, but it's about the quality of the training and the researcher and the supervision. So that's just something to be aware of. What happens, people, is that they tend to they'll start on section 1 without actually reading the rest of the template. So the first thing to do is go through the whole part B1 before you start writing anything, and make bullet points of what you need and who you need to talk to. So the problem is people tend to give 6 pages out of the 10 to part 1.1, and then that's only about, we'll say, 12% of the whole mark. So just be aware of that. I'm just going to go through each one of these now. So section 1.1 is about the quality of the research and innovation action. So there are 4, again, each heading has little subheadings, so you have 4 kind of subheadings, guidance to follow, and these are only these are headings, but you should follow them. Give them each a paragraph, give them each a title. Don't just delete what's there and presume that the evaluator will find it. Make it easy for the evaluator to find that information. So the first thing they want, and I'll go through these, they have the introduction and the state of the art. The next is the research methodology. Next is originality and innovative aspects of the program, interdisciplinary aspects, and gender dimension. And then the last 2, they say if relevant, but ignore if relevant, try address it anyway. That's just for competitiveness. So for the introduction, as Patrick already mentioned, that table at the beginning listing your beneficiary and your partner organisation is no longer there. So your first sentence should be who you are, where you're going, who your supervisor is, and if you're doing secondment, and the overall aim of what your research project. That's something, I know it's obvious, but people actually do not address it, and you're looking for who the researcher is. 5 pages down, you still don't know who the researcher is and where they're going. So just make it clear to the evaluator. And that's probably the key thing. And then in the introduction, talk about the big picture of your research area, why it's important for society or industry, etc. And just open up with a really good statement that you grab the evaluator's attention straight away. So the state of the art. This is a difficult one to do because, again, it's your research, and it's easy to go on and on for pages, but you don't have time to do this. So the best thing to do is think about what your research objectives are and work back to what state of the art currently exists in your area, and think about how your objectives will go beyond this. So it can be, break it into paragraphs depending on you could have 3 research objectives, and if you have 3 key paragraphs talking about the current state of the art with those objectives, they kind of link together. And if you can refer to, your supervisor's work or your own work to date, that will look good as well, and use references as much as possible. And again, look at the fleshed out slides, because there's a lot more detail in those. So specific research objectives, again, these should relate back, these should go beyond the state of the art that you just mentioned. And these research objectives could link then to your research work packages. So again, with this part, you must try to be coherent, and that is why, again, going through the template and seeing how different sections link before you even put pen to paper is very important before you begin. So research methodology and approach. This is how you're going to do the research and the key steps you're going to do in the novel equipment techniques that you're going to use in order to complete the research objectives you mentioned. So what you do here, and what we've seen looks well, is when people break this section up by the different major steps they're going to do throughout their 2-year project, show that it's feasible, and after each step you could write in, which work package this relates to. So if you say you're going to analyse a certain, piece of data, and this is the outcome you're going to do by using this certain equipment, just in brackets at the end, refer it down, and I'll go through the work packages in a minute, which research work package this relates to. And you'll see as I go through how it's important to keep everything coherent. What other people do is they tend to go by work package. They say work package 1 is this research objective, and this is what we're going to do, and whichever way suits, but just remember it has to be concise, to the point, and make sure you pick out the key novel things you're going to do during the research. And if you have a secondment organised, make sure to state where within the research you're going to carry out this secondment. So, original, usually, how do we go back? Yes, so this again is very much described more with the slides you're going to get, but what original and innovative aspects, people tend to repeat the section previous, but this is about through the whole project, describe what are the novel and original aspects of your project. So for example, are you doing interdisciplinary research in your area that hasn't been done before? Are you working with different sectors that hasn't been done before in your area of research? Are you applying a new piece of equipment that hasn't been used before? Just list it out and make it clear to the evaluator that these are the key, and we sometimes see people using bullet points and it looks really well, or you can have a nice paragraph describing it. Fine. Interdisciplinary aspects, this is where you describe what are the different disciplines you're mixing with. You could be in a team that has different disciplines. Your supervisors could have a mix of disciplines. You might be going as a secondment, which is completely different to a discipline that's strictly yours. So it's important to describe what aspect of your project is going to involve different disciplines. So gender dimension, and people leave this out because they don't think it's relevant to them, but it's about how you consider gender when you're doing your research. So if you're doing anything, there's a lot of help with links and tools that you can use. If you're not aware of anything that you're doing, you can look to see what case studies in your area exist. And one that's very useful actually is Yellow Window, and this is a European funded project, and what it is, it goes through the different disciplines that are there, and you can click in and see case studies about how your discipline implements different aspects of gender. For example, they look at transport, ICT, energy, healthcare. So it is useful, and even if you can refer to a case study and say you're going to do similar, just a little paragraph to say that you're going to consider it in your research. And also there's also the Europa.eu, the European Commission's page on gender, and it gives you a few key statements that you could use, or if you need more information on it. So the next section, 1.2, this is about the quality and appropriateness of the training. So this section, it's a difficult section, but this is why you need to talk to your host organisation and understand what training is out there, what can you use from your host within your secondment, talk to your supervisor as well, what key training you're going to receive. And it's split, so this section is split up into 2 sections, and one of the key weaknesses we see here is that people tend to leave out the second heading, which is the transfer of knowledge to the host from the researcher. So if a researcher, we'll say a professor, is coming from the US, they're going to offer a lot of knowledge to the host, and they need to describe how they're going to transfer that. So the first heading will be about how the researcher is going to get information, and the second one is about how the host is going to get information and transfer of knowledge from the researcher. Then finally, if anyone's doing a global fellowship, you need to talk about how, when you come back from your third country, back to Maynooth University, how are you going to transfer the knowledge that you received back to the host? And what knowledge are you going to get when you go to the third country? So for the training, the transfer of knowledge from the researcher to the host, you should build this around the 3 key levels of skills that the evaluators want to see. So for instance, you have the core research skills, and these are the research skills relating to your own project or what you're going to, the specific skills. You have advanced research skills, so these are things outside, could be outside your research area, or further research skills, not necessarily important for your research that you're actually doing, but it's important for your whole career. And then transferable and complementary skills. These are skills which you can transfer to different organisations, such as project management, business skills, time management, entrepreneurship. There's a list. I'll go through. There is a list provided in the handbook and the further slides, and there's a lot there, and that list is based on what's provided by the European Commission as well. So the next is transfer of knowledge from the host to the researcher. And what they want to see is here is you must describe what skills you already have as a researcher and what, this could be current contacts, current levels of expertise that you've learned, use of different equipment that the host doesn't necessarily have. What are you going to add to the host and how will you transfer this knowledge? So for example, are you going to mentor students or PhDs? Or are you going to have team workshops, etc.? So you need to talk about this in the project. Don't just say, these are the skills I have, I'll teach them to everyone. You need to be specific and give really good details about how you're going to do this. And for global fellowships, you must explain how the newly acquired skills, like I said, can be transferred from the third country back to the host organisation. So 1.3 is about the quality of the supervision. So for this, it should be broken up again. So most of the sections you come across, once you get into the heading, you'll see there's a lot more little headings you have to address. So it's just important to be aware of these. So first of all, for this section, you must describe the experience of the supervisors. And then the next part of it is describing the quality of the hosting arrangements. So with the experience of the supervisors, describe who are your supervisors. So you won't just have one supervisor. You probably have a co-supervisor within the host as well. And if you're doing a secondment, you definitely should have a secondment supervisor. So you might have 3 supervisors, and if you just have one, they'll say, okay, will there be no one else helping this researcher when they come to the host? Then describe collectively or, snapshot of the experience of the supervisor. You don't have time to write, pages and pages about how brilliant they are, because you can refer to the table in section part B2, but highlight their experience to date. So the number of PhD students, the amount of funding they receive, their amount of publications. Just give a collective figure. And then explain the role of the supervisor. So the role of them, they'll help you to develop your personalised career development plan. They'll have bi-weekly meetings with you. You'll meet them all every 6 months to discuss the progress of your project. So you need to have nice key statements there as well. The next part is discuss hosting arrangements, and this isn't about what key infrastructure is in the host and what equipment is there. This is about how you're going to be integrated into the host but also into your team. So it's about showing the evaluator. You might say, okay, there's already 10 postdocs within the lab that I'm going to. They have bi-weekly social events. We have induction for new staff. You need to give them a picture of what's there, what they're going into, how they're going to be integrated fast. And you can also refer to Maynooth having the HR of Excellence logo as well for integrating researchers. So finally, section 1.4, this is where you prove your potential to carry out the fellowship, and this is the only part of the proposal where you can talk about yourself and how brilliant you are. And it's the only place where the evaluator gets to know you properly. So it's kind of like telling a story about, first of all, you talk about your career goals to date. Then you tell the story today about how you got to the position you're in now and why you want to go further and do this individual fellowship. Choose key highlights from your CV, so you're constantly referring to your CV, so don't say something and not have it in your CV. Especially, if you're saying I published in X amount of journals, make sure all those journals are listed in your CV. Demonstrate any transferable skills you already have. And then you must prove to the evaluator why you're the best person to do it. So just a few key statements, and it's something what we've heard is that if you can relate to the researcher, if you can get to know them, that it's not, it doesn't jump out like a robot's writing it. It can be you can make it quite personal. So the impact section, part B is the section part B1. This section is worth 30% of the overall marks. And the best way to kind of look at what they want from this section is to look at the expected impacts in the Marie Sklodowska-Curie work programme. And I've provided these in the handbook, and they're also in the slides you'll be sent. But they're detailed headings, and what they're a good guidance to see how you're going to form this section. And I just would definitely look at them because you can see exactly what they want to come out of it. So there are 3 headings in the impact section. The first one would be section 2.1, enhancing the future career prospects of the researcher after the fellowship. So essentially, how are they going to be employable, and how many, what organisations would they have opportunities in, and also how is their work going to contribute to further, knowledge economy. So it's a difficult one to get right, because what happens is people it's one where you can kind of go off track and start to repeat what you have already said in section 1. So you have to think about, you're not repeating what you're doing in the fellowship. You're talking about when I do this, this is what I'll be able to do. So here's a nice suggested structure that you could go by. So first you should describe how your skills and experience are going to improve your employability and career prospects outside of academia and inside of academia. So don't just say I want to be a professor in the university, because you just have to think outside the box as well. You have to say, this is my overall career aim, but I also have opportunities outside of academia, such as in industry, in voluntary organisations, in NGOs. So just think outside the box of what industry, what areas you could end up in, and talk about why that is important. So why would they want your experience? And use good stats about the need of researchers in your area, what the lack of skills that are currently existing. Give nice statements. It looks very good. Also describe the impact of the collaborations you make during your fellowship. So because of your fellowship, you're going to be working with your supervisor and the networks of your supervisor. You're also going to do secondments and work with different disciplines. So you talk about what the impact of this on your overall research and your overall future as a researcher. And then finally, this is something that they don't clearly ask for, but it is something you should address, is how will your research contribute to a knowledge-based economy and society? So essentially, how is your research and how are you going to address a priority of Europe at a global level? And one thing that you could refer to is where you fit into the Sustainable Development Goals, because as you know, with Horizon 2020 and the next frameworks, it's a key thing that they're following. So it is something that you should try to fit into one of these goals and see where your research fits into. And you could say, in the future, I want to apply my research to other areas which will fit into one of these goals. So it's just a nice little thing at the end that you could pop in. Keep doing that. The next section is the quality of the proposed measures to exploit and disseminate the project results. Again, this is split into two headings: dissemination of the project results to the target audiences and exploitation of the project results. Before you split it up, and this is just something that I think is very useful, is if before you go into the two headings, describe what key research results are coming out of your project. So this is because, and you'll see why, it's good for the evaluator to see, okay, that's something, okay, a prototype's coming out, or a feasibility study is being completed, or they can see exactly what's coming out, and it helps you then describe these sections. So when you describe your key results, it doesn't have to be a list, just give the key. It could be one key result, a best practice, standardization, anything. And then you describe the dissemination of the project results and split it into two. You have two phases of that. You must describe the target audiences. So these are the people and the experts that would be interested in your results. These aren't the public. This is people like industry or people within your research field that will use your results and develop them further, or will be interested in understanding your results for future use. Then step 2 is describe the dissemination activities you will use to target these expert audiences. So, for example, will you go to conferences? Will you go publish in journals? Will you target industry events? And don't just list out, these general words. You need to give specific examples. You're better off, saying, I'm going to go to X conference in month 5, which will target X audiences. There is an estimated this number of people at these events, and it gives you a nice kind of checklist, and you can be used then in your Gantt chart and as a deliverable. So you're better off thinking outside the box of what's coming up, what journals are out there, is there any events that happen every year nationally, internationally, that you could target. And if you have a few key activities, it looks really well and shows that you're well planned. And don't worry if it actually turns out that's in month 3, not month 5 like you proposed. That's okay. That's just stuff you solve when you're doing the grant agreement. The next stage is exploitation of project results, and in the handbook and also the slides you'll get a good list of all the different types of exploitation methods that you could possibly have coming out of your project. It's not just about IP. IP is something, if you're saying that an exploitation method is commercializing your results, then you'll be talking about IP. So you need to say, exploitation could be something like you're developing your research further by doing a collaborative project, or you're doing further internal research, or you're using it to impact on policy. So you need to think, don't just say, some people say here when they come to this section, they say, oh, I don't anticipate any IP, so they just don't address it. Address it because it's always relevant to people, and if you don't address it, it just shows that your results are going nowhere. That's what you're proving to the evaluator. So finally, quality of the proposed measures to communicate the project activities to different target audiences. This is the final section of the impact, and this is about how you're going to communicate your project activities to the public and the end users of your results, so they're not the expert audiences. So what we say here is to describe all the different communication and project activities. So who are the non-expert audiences that you want to target your results to? And this again shows the importance of talking to your communication and outreach office and seeing what events are coming up. So you could have results that you want to target university students, primary, secondary school students, end users of your results. So if you're developing something in healthcare, you could talk to patients or, you know, associations that represent patients. The media, they're another big one, so any newspapers, why would they, you know, you need to say that you're going to target them, community groups, charities, etc. So you describe what messages you want as well to get across to these groups. Not each, you could give a general message, you might say to, you know, demonstrate the importance of funding this type of research, or trying to get more children to participate doing research in your discipline. You know, so just think of a key message that you could use. So these are just examples of different communication activities, and there's something that, again, you can go through them and spot ones that you might want to get involved in. If you see they love to see events that you're going to carry out, so European Researchers Night, SFI Discover Science Week. Again, talk to your communication and outreach office and see what events are coming up in the next few years that you could get involved in. As well, your own, you know, if you write blogs, if you're involved in social media, you know, article and newspapers are, you know, just think outside the box, and again, work closely with your host to find out. So I'm flying through all these sections, but again, the webinar is there and the handbook is there. Implementation. So this is again 3 sections. It used to be 4, now it's cut to 3. So that's good. At this stage, you don't have much space left, so there's just a few tips of how you can cut it down. So with the first section, it's about your work plan. And it's really 3 parts that they're looking for: the work packages, appropriateness of the tasks, and the Gantt charts. So they don't provide work package tables in the template, as you can see. I would avoid writing blocks of text, and because you don't have much time for each work package, it's nice to put it into a proper work package table such as this one. This is something we provide, and you can adapt it and use it yourselves because it addresses everything they're looking for. So it's addressing, you know, the work package title, when it occurs, the objective, the task, the deliverables needed for each work package, and the milestones. So use that or adapt it as needed, but it is very good to keep it coherent, to keep everything for the evaluators to see exactly what you're doing for each work package. I'll go through these. So for the work packages, you'd have at most 6 work packages. 2 to 3 research work packages only. Don't have 6 research work packages. Remember, it's only a 1 to 2 year project. So if you had 6 research work packages, it just doesn't look feasible. You should have 1 work package for management, 1 for training and transfer of knowledge, and then 1 for dissemination, exploitation, communication, public engagement. That incorporates all the activities you've listed in the impact section. Sometimes people merge management and training, and that's up to you. You know, if you're caught for space, you could merge those 2. And again, use the table or adapt it as needed. So appropriateness of tasks, this should only be a little paragraph just to justify that the work you're doing is feasible and credible, and that the timing and the workload makes sense. So they just want you to back up, because one of the weaknesses could be that your research is over ambitious or it's under ambitious. So make sure to justify that it's neither of these. Now the Gantt chart, they provide a Gantt chart in the template, use this and adapt it as needed. So the Gantt chart provided is nice and clear. They go through each work package title. You can have a word for, if you have a key word for each work package title, you can squeeze it in here rather than having a long title. You could have even in brackets the shortened version of it, and you can pop it in there. And then for each deliverable of each work package, you can fit it in by the month that you've mentioned. So you can see it's nice and clear for the evaluator, you can see exactly the timing. So for global and for career restart, if they're 36 months, you have that end bit, but if you're only 24, just go up to 24 months. You can delete the last 12 months. So just keep it like that. And for this, you also put in the secondment. So if you have a secondment being carried out, you can put it. You wouldn't have a secondment work package, but you could just put in secondment and put it chop out wherever your secondment is. And it looks, use a template that's there. Some people try to completely make a new Gantt chart, and sometimes it works, sometimes it definitely doesn't work. So just, use what's there. So 3.2, appropriateness of the management structure and procedures. So for this section, they ask for quite a lot, and it is, you don't have much space. So just try address everything. It doesn't need to be long, but just to show that you're addressing the key information is, try do this at least. So these are the key kind of headings or little, paragraphs that they're looking for, even if you could provide a bold word to show you're addressing it. So if you look at the template and you look at what they're looking for, it's kind of, if you can pull out exactly. So they're looking for the organisation and management structure. So this is showing a diagram of who's involved in the host, and a diagram showing the supervisor and yourselves in the middle. Progress monitoring. So here you're referring back to the section where you describe the supervision, and you're describing the meetings you have with your supervisor, how you're going to monitor the progress of your career development plan and also your research project itself. Risk and contingency plans. So use a table here. Go through all your work packages. Try leave this to the end so that you know exactly what you're doing. Go through all your work packages and pull out some feasible risks that could occur. These could be small things, like for instance your equipment failure, or that you delay your start date, or a conference that you happen isn't going ahead, and you then have a contingency plan for each one of these, and put in the middle then the work package number. And it's nice and simple, and it keeps everything together. Then the involvement of an entity with capital legal link. This is if applicable. You don't need to address this. For example, if you're going to a spin-off, or that's in the university, you could mention, all you need to do is mention their name and their role. It's 2 lines. And then support services provided by the host. So you can use a table here, and when you do your diagram, you can expand on them here by giving a table of each one. HR services, financial services, use of your access, etc., and give a line of what they're going to do or who they are. So finally, last but not least, the appropriateness of the institutional environment. This section is it's almost like you're summing up everything that you're going to be doing during your fellowship. And it's showing that the host is committed to supporting you in every level of it, through the research, through the training, through the supervision. So you're essentially referring back to all the sections where this is described, and you're going to say, you make sure to state that the host is committed to your fellowship, and that they're going to provide excellent supervision, excellent training, support you in your integration. And you don't need to again repeat everything that's mentioned, but you can refer back to the key points where you have mentioned them before. And then finally, provide a table or information describing the infrastructure in the host. So this is in regards to the research infrastructure and training infrastructure that will allow you to do your fellowship. So you could have, if there's if there's types of labs that you're going to be in, are you going to use the library service? Are you going to be using online staff tools? Just list them all here, and again refer to the capacities table where you've more details. So that's the end of part B1, and I'm not going to go through part B2 in detail because I've probably gone over time already, but there is a lot of information in the templates when you download them, like the ethical issues. I think there's about 4 pages of what they want from it. Then the CV of the experienced researchers, we do provide a lot of guidelines on that in our handbook, but it's also in the template as well if you look at that. Capacities of participating organisations, your host will help you here. You probably have a lot of information. This is just all about the host organisation, and what, it's a page per host, so you'd have the beneficiary, and if you have a secondment, you have a page on them as well. So if you are going as a secondment somewhere, make sure that you give them the table early so that they can fill it out. And letter of commitment is only for global fellowships only, so that's from the host you're going to, that they say that they're going to host you. I think that's it. Yeah, so just a reminder, use our supports. Don't use these slides if you're writing the proposal, because if you want more information, they're within the handbook and also the webinar and also the slides that Patrick will send around. And they are very good for kind of making sure that you have everything that's required. So, thank you. If you have any questions, I suppose we can leave at the end.
Take a question or two if anyone wants. I know, Bernard, you have to go, that's fine. Thanks very much for coming, Tanya. Thanks very much. Any questions? Mary?
Yeah, just with the career prospects one, if it's the reintegration Marie Curie that they're going for, is it important that the career prospects are in the country that they're seeking to reintegrate into, or in Europe more generally?
More general, is that in regards to the impact section?
Yeah.
Oh, you talk about it in general, you'd say these are all the organisations. It doesn't have to be, in Ireland. You can say, these are types of organisations I could work in. In regards to the reintegration, talk about the benefit in the training section. When you talk about the transfer of knowledge to the researcher, talk about the benefit of them returning to their host country or to Europe. and what, and you know, the experience they're bringing from wherever they were before that.